So I've been asked a few times, how did I get into kettlebell juggling? What brought me here to a place where I am a full-time coach, pouring my time and energy and passion into a unique niche sport that I love immensely. And I'm helping people from around the world also build that love for kettlebell juggling, not out of forcing, but out of introducing them to a sport and craft that has this unique effect on people of continually bringing them in. Mosquitoes here, so if I slap the air, I'm not crazy. So my story begins back when I was really young. My goal in life was to become a professional soccer player. That was my dream. That was my passion. And all the way through my schooling and into high school, when I was 18 years old, I dedicated my life towards becoming a professional soccer player. And I had the opportunity to trial pro in Germany with a club called FC Nuremberg. And at that time of my life, when I was just about to exit high school in Canada and go into college or university, I was at an interesting choice point in my life. I had put a lot of pressure on myself to pursue this dream that was meaningful to me and presented this opportunity to pursue something that I truly loved and committed myself to, which is a good feeling to have, that drive. But I was also starting to feel very isolated and lonely. I missed my friends from high school that I had to sacrifice any time with in order to pursue my dream and train to play pro. I also had to make this decision of moving to Germany by myself, being involved with a team and community that spoke very little English, and that was going to be my life. And I decided, also based on having other interests come up, like wanting to go to college for psychology. I was very interested in self-help and spirituality and holistic health and life coaching as well at the time. And so I decided to not pursue playing pro in Germany, although I had a very successful trial. And I then was back home with my buddies finishing up high school, but I also at the same time had this void now inside of me because I didn't have that same meaningful pursuit that soccer offered me. You know, when you get the opportunity to have a goal and a clear vision, it's a powerful state and feeling because you get to direct your life force, your energy, your time towards that single aim. And I didn't have that anymore. And so I started filling that with unhealthy habits. I started smoking, I started vaping a ton, got addicted to a lot of different nicotine containing products. I was smoking marijuana, I was trying a bunch of different drugs, I was partying a lot, and all of these things were attempts to fill that same void of having that sense of meaning and direction and purpose, and that slow unraveling of dopamine through the pursuit of something meaningful in the distance. And so that led me on a new path of trying to figure out what was next in my life that had that same drive. And I was also figuring out career at the time. I was interested in psychology, I dropped that. I was interested in health coaching and life coaching, so I did a few courses. I was like, I'm gonna become this health and life coach and teach people how to live holistically. Didn't stick to that, so I dropped it. And this pattern of picking things up and dropping them just kept coming up for me. And eventually, I started dialing in more and more into personal training and continuing to explore different physical disciplines that presented these unique qualities. And I'll get into that in just a second. So I became a personal trainer, and at the same time, I was involved in all of these really unique disciplines that I kept getting into, but then didn't commit to. Kept getting into, didn't commit to. And all of these disciplines now presented me with an opportunity to pursue both this feeling of athleticism, this feeling of being able to use the full potential of my body. Not to look good. I wasn't interested in aesthetics. I was interested in what my body could actually do and what it's capable of. Just brought so much more inspiration to me. And so I got into all of these flow-oriented disciplines. I did yoga for a little bit, didn't really stick to that. Two on the flow side. I got into hardstyle kettlebell work, going heavy and utilizing just a couple of skills like the conventional kettlebell training method. And that was great, but it was too rigid for me. It was too strength-based, and it didn't have this opportunity to also experience fluidity. I got into a ground-based soft acrobatic system called Movement Flow, which was fascinating. It's almost like a choreography of movements on the ground that you can experience this beautiful sense of transition between different positions and flow. It was fascinating, but didn't really stick to that. I felt it was too flowing, just like yoga, too flowy. Didn't really provide me with this balance. Started getting into steel mace flow, and that was fascinating, and I still love the discipline, always have a mace on me. And I started loving getting into the flow side of the steel mace, connecting movements together with a light weight, and then also the strength side, so taking a 20 kg mace and doing single arm 360s was something that I personally accomplished that I'm still proud of. And that pursuit also was meaningful, but I didn't stick to it. And it wasn't until I went through a ton of different disciplines that I found kettlebell juggling. And I had heard about it or seen it through Instagram and YouTube and just people starting to put things together. And it was fascinating to me. I also at the same time started getting into more of the flow orientation towards kettlebells. So instead of just doing your conventional heart style approach to bells, incorporating different lateral movements and figure eight sequences, and I would put these complex flows together, not because they looked cool, but because they just provided my body the opportunity to tap into a creative side of fitness where I could use my body, also focus on some of the strength side and the athleticism of being able to move a heavier weight. And then also, I love the engagement of my mind. I'm someone who is very ADHD. And in particular, when it comes to learning things, I always love being able to learn more and new things and pioneer, and just that pursuit of figuring out what I haven't yet figured out. It's fascinating to me, and unlocking new levels of awareness is something I love. And I really took that up with kettlebells. And eventually, kettlebell juggling was becoming a little more popular at the time. This was 5 years ago. And I found it a fascinating sport because I'm utilizing a bell. All of the movement patterns are very functional, meaning, and there's a lot of different definitions of functionality that people throw out there. I don't myself truly know what it means. But basically, I was able to move in more ways that made sense to me, that I saw in sports, like learning how to cast the bell to the side and move across the body, and learning how to coordinate that rotation with moving laterally, and the weight distribution. All of that just felt very functional, and it felt good in my body. I felt like I was becoming a more capable mover in person because of it. So I loved what it had to offer in terms of utilizing more of my body. I felt like I was getting stronger. I felt like my joints were experiencing more of what they wanted in order to adapt and grow and be more versatile in strength and mobility. I felt like I was getting the joy of also entering this flow state out of juggling in particular. And I started studying a lot to do with flow state, the actual experience and scientific research on what flow is. What is it when people tap into this flow state, when they're in the zone? And I focus a lot on trying to get into that state. And turns out one of my favorite definitions of flow is this acronym STER, S-T-E-R. The S is the sense of selflessness. And so when you get into this flow state, you kind of lose sense of yourself. You lose sense of what you're capable of, what you're not. And you open up more capacity in your mind to just be present with what is and what you're involved in. E stands for effortlessness. And that is something that you tap into a lot with kettlebell juggling when you get into the sense of flow. You start to organize your body in a harmonious way, and everything's talking to each other. Your brain, your body, everything is working together in this seamless way, and it comes across as this experience of effortlessness and fluidity and the sense of flow. And I love accessing that state. It reminds me a lot of martial arts. And still my favorite comment to get today from people is, wow, you make it look so effortless. Or one guy in particular is always, it's a bit of an inside joke. He says, wow, you look so quiet. Everything just looks quiet when you juggle. And I love that. And that's the state of flow and being fluid that I'm always trying to pursue. Never master, but always pursue. Effortlessness. T time stands for timelessness. And so you lose sense of time. And who doesn't want to lose track of time and just get immersed in something that's creative and takes your presence? And we really need that in this world. The R stands for richness. And so the richness of the experience is increased. And the joy, the impact that leaving a good flow session has on you is just, you feel better. There's so many aspects of life that get improved. So the sense of flow, categorized by STER, S-T-E-R, is something I was really fascinated in and kept getting into with kettlebell juggling. There's always opportunities to learn something new. And even today, after 6 years of kettlebell juggling, I'm always learning something new. I'm always not only being able to add new skills onto my repertoire, but more importantly for me right now, more interesting, is refining skills I already know how to do. You can learn not just in breadth and so variety, but you can learn in depth. And so your ability to actually excavate deeper and deeper into a skill to understand its nuances more and more. And I love that pursuit just as much as learning more. Variety. At the time when I started juggling, there wasn't any education out there. There was people in Russia who were juggling, and the kettlebell competition was already a thing. And had been for a long time. Most people don't realize that kettlebell juggling has been a sport in places in the world like Russia for a long time. And the kettlebell itself was first started to be thrown around at festivals in Russia. It was a way, the 16 kg bell, I believe, was an actual common weight they used to measure crops with on a scale. And so, and it had the ball with the handle. And then in festivals, they took this tool and they started throwing them. And so the origin of kettlebells was actually releasing and catching the bell. Not necessarily juggling, but it was release. And then things happened. And anyways, in the West, kettlebell juggling wasn't much of a sport. Not a sport at all. It was almost this new gimmicky thing of fitness that some people were doing and saying would promote strength and this and that. And a handful of people were getting into it. And I was one of those people near the start of when kettlebell juggling was really becoming popular here in Canada, the States, in North America. And it was a really cool time because I got to just pioneer and create new movements that no one had ever done before. And a lot of the skills that are now available, like in freestyle juggling, were me or someone else just being like, hey, let's try this. That's so cool. Let me try that. Oh, look what I figured out I could do with this. And it just expanded from there. And it was a really cool time of the growth. And then the Kettlebell World Games were created. The first one was in Warsaw, in Poland, and that was the start of the sport. I believe that was 4 years ago, was the first World Games. And that was finally an opportunity to take the sport and compete, not only in the field of freestyle juggling. Well, at the time, there wasn't any freestyle juggling, but in classical juggling, which was already an established sport, an event with rules and regulations in Russia. And that then grew to all around the world. And the next competition was in Spain, and I attended that one in Chiclana in 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. Crazy, time flies. And I had the opportunity to come second place overall in that world game, and that was super fun. We were still figuring a lot of things out competition-wise, but it provided a good platform for people to be like, hey, let's this thing's legit. I can train, I can be an athlete again, and I can pursue competing on a world stage. And it's just grown from there. The next year, it was in New York, and I placed first overall as a world champion in that competition. And the year after that, in 2025, was London, and I placed first again overall as a world champion in that. And it's been so cool to see the sport grow. And now I'm looking out, and the education that I provided, that other people have provided, is now so accessible, and it's such an exciting time for the sport to be alive. When I started again, there's no education. And so my aim over the last 4 years was to create that education in the form of online courses so that people could access it and learn the sport safely, methodically, without guessing, without potentially injuring themselves. And that's something that I wish I had. And to this day, it makes me so grateful that I was one of the early adopters of kettlebell juggling, and I've continued to take it on, not because it's something that just looks cool and gets a lot of likes. It doesn't actually get a lot of likes, funny enough, compared to other things. When I work out on Instagram, I get a lot more likes than when I do cool shit with the kettlebell. But anyways, I do it because there's just something so intriguing about the sport, and you just need to get into it. That most people that get into it just are attracted to it and continue and want to get better and better and better. And the community itself is amazing. It's all supportive. The competitions don't feel like competitions. They feel like a team event where everyone's competing against themselves. And that's really what the competitions are. It's like, can you do better than you did last year? How can you be more creative and create a new program that is more advanced than what you did last year? And how can you compete against yourself to be better and better? And here we are now. I've had the opportunity to win some world games, plan on winning more, and I want to continue creating education and coursework for individuals around the world. And so people can access kettlebell juggling, improve their fitness, improve their ability to move well with the kettlebell and themselves, and also a great challenge for not only their bodies but their minds. Some of my favorite clients and students are of older age, and what fascinates me is they are so in love with kettlebell juggling despite its complexity, and because it just keeps the mind so engaged. The memory that's required, the coordination, the flow recognition, the mind-body connection is just something that is such an incredible benefit that is hard to explain, but you have to really get into it to realize. So that's my story with kettlebell juggling, how I got into it, what drove me in, and that void of pursuing my goal of becoming a professional soccer player has very much been filled with this pursuit of kettlebell juggling. Not entirely in the same way, but through a different vehicle. And I've learned that it's not only kettlebell juggling in particular that I'm so attracted to, it's the art of learning a discipline deeply that creates a sense of meaning, of diving into something intentionally and excavating it. And so you can really develop quality in your life, this ability to dive deep into something in a world that is so shallow, where we can just ask ChatGPT or social media a question and it gives us a shallow response, but we're not actually diving into something and becoming a pro at it, developing mastery in something. And I believe that's what kettlebell juggling has to offer at its core, is a sense of mastery, not of mastering it, but this pursuit of mastery, of learning how to learn again, learning how to pursue something deeply and with love and passion. That's my story. I'm very happy to have shared it, and thank you for the question for those of you who were curious. Peace out.